Welcome to Essentials for Adoption-attuned Parenting. This is a podcast exploring how parents can best relate and connect to their adopted child. If you have adopted, or even if you are thinking of adopting, this is the show for you. Each week, you'll discover tips and tools for adoption-attuned parenting. This is the podcast for building a strong foundation for your adoptive family. And now, from Gift Family Services, here are your hosts, coaches, and adoptive parents, Joann DiStefano and Susan David.
Hi, this is Joann from Chicago.
And this is Susan from San Diego. Welcome to our April edition of the Essentials for Adoption-attuned Parenting. Now, we're all in the midst of this COVID-19, and it's been ravaging our country and the world.
That's so true, Susan.
Yeah, and Joann, you and I had a discussion about whether we even wanted to bother with our podcast, given all the chaos, and the overload that we're experiencing. So I think we thought it was hard to see how we could actually help people. Do you have any thoughts on this?
We continue talking about it, Susan. We saw that, a lot of parents are going to be having anxiety over what's going on. And that's a way for us to help because there is fear and anxiety all out there in these chaotic times. And how do we deal with chaos and disruption that's making us so uncomfortable in our own lives? How do we get some kind of control over it? We're not going to get power over it. There's going to be some powerlessness over it, but we can get some kind of control. And that's what I think we can help them with.
And I think in an odd sort of way, it does relate to adoption attunement because many times when we go into adoption, we do have to give up control, whether it's the home study process or the waiting. So there is a giving up of control. And the other thing is that adoption attunement requires us to take a step back and have intention about our reactions, right? Or responding rather than reacting. So I think it fits in with our general premise. And so let's do it. We
want to help our listeners develop that adoption attunement. That's what we're committed to doing, is to help to boost that adoption attunement intelligence, which we call AQ. Even in these tough times, we're not going to just stop attuning to ourselves or to our children. That's what this is all about. So as you know, what's happening right now is anxiety that is permeating our lives right now. And it's coming in because there is that impermanence about society right now. We don't know. We're isolated for one thing. We don't know if we're going to have even enough toilet paper or any kind of food. There's an impermanence as to what society is going to look like in the future because now everybody's home. And is that going to change the way we live? And what anxiety is, it's a restlessness. And it's due to a feeling of powerlessness. We feel that we don't have any power. So that makes us worry, nervous, we have dread, and we are because we're faced with something that has disrupted our life, that has made us uncomfortable. It also could be a fear, but fear is a little bit different because that's more future-oriented. But our body's going to show those signs of that anxiety, and it's going to be through muscle tension, or sweating or heart palpitations, or even in the stomach, you feel, oh my God, I'm feeling this in my stomach, or I can't eat, or whatever it is. So take in the signs, take in all of it, take in the body signs, take in what you're thinking. All of that's important to that anxiety that you might be feeling. But if you do feel that dread, accept it and then say, what am I going to do about it?
I think, too, the way we feel the dread where the anxiety is exacerbated by our culture. It's been a while or a long time, maybe 2001, then maybe before that, world, you think about Pearl Harbor, that's before my time, but my parents' time or the Great Depression. I don't think that our culture is really good at handling things like disasters. I think we live in a world that we think we can control. This bad things don't happen to us. And I think we've maybe grown a little complacent, and that's part of human nature, right? To be complacent. And now's the time, like this is an opportunity, as hard as it is, to like reassess our priorities, what we care about, reconnect with the things that maybe people that we haven't in the past, or reconnect with us. Like I know for myself, I'm staying home, so I have more time. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing. I don't have to be rushing to get here, get there. I do take a lot of drives out, though, to get toilet paper. You have to go to all these different stores. You're not even supposed to do that.
Why people are taking more Sunday drives. Remember the old Sunday drive with our families?
Yeah, right. That was exciting. Yes, I remember that because my dad did that. Absolutely.
And if we look at it as neither an either or is it both and, Susan, it's both, even though they're chaos, there's less pollution. So that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Less cars on the road. People are slowing down. That's a good thing. People are spending more time with their family. I know one person that told me her daughter's so happy that she's spending more time with her parents because she wasn't spending that much time before. They were all running around all the time.
Yeah.
So
with all their activities.
There are some good things that are coming out of this also. Yeah. And we have to look at those things too, not just the negative.
Now, this COVID-19 is a traumatic event. And, our kids are prone to having triggers, right? And so this would be one of those triggers, I would think, for the kids and their parents. It's the parents and the kids and the kids and the parents, but in different ways. What can you tell me about that?
Our kids are all about impermanency. They started their life with impermanency, meaning they left their birth mother and joined another family. And even though we think that they don't know that, there's a feeling there of, something happened to them. They lost some senses of smell and touch, mm-hmm. or even sounds that they were used to when they were in the womb. So all of that, when they're taking from one place and put in another, is an impermanent situation. So they grew up with feeling that dread of impermanency, and now we're in another impermanent situation. What we used to call normal is no longer there. So they're wondering, what's going to happen to me? Mm-hmm. What's going to happen to my parents? What may happen? And that's very traumatic because trauma and grief are all about the situation being disrupted and changed from what you normally think about that your situation's like. Mm-hmm. And especially like teenagers, they're going through identity crisis, a lot of the adopted teenagers. And now there's this new thing that they have to go through also. What is my identity? What's it going to be like? Am I ever going to get back to a life that I was used to?
So that's a lot to unpack. But I think for me, when I think about it, and that would be, we're working on this stuff. It's a process. So you're working on it. It's a lifetime journey. You're not going to solve it all in one.
Correct.
Or eat the enchilada in one bite, as they say. But what I hear you saying, or what I'm thinking about, is that we have to look at ourselves before, as parents, as people, before we can help our kids move through this. And
so true.
That's the same thing for a lifetime of adoption, right? You have to think about, how do you process it? What are you thinking about it? How do you view it? And then you can step in and assist your kids.
So let's say, Susan, you're so right. You're inside also upset about this impermanence because now you don't know where your next paycheck's going to come from, or you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, or your mortgage payment's going to come from, or whatever it is. And you just don't know how you're going to deal with life unless you start looking in, and we call that a U-turn under Eternal Family Systems. And if you don't start looking inside and saying, what's making me anxious, and accept that you're anxious, you're not going to be able to help your child. Mm-hmm. Just can't.
I was wondering too about, how do you get to make that U-turn?
You have to really calm yourself down. If you're in an anxiety state to begin with, and your mind's all over the place, you can't really be present with yourself or with your children. So the first thing is to get presence and accept that, I am in an anxious state. Don't try to diminish it, but accept it. You have to own that you're in that state and then say, give me some moments to calm myself down, to figure out what's going on with me, and then go help your kids out, get to their present state.
And I want to add this idea about fear, where we're all kind of worried about what's going to be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about fear, we have an acronym: false expectations appearing real. So you can only deal with today's problems. You cannot put yourself fast forward and solve those problems. So just handle each thing that comes along and handle the next day's events as it comes along. And I think that's important for our kids, that when you model something like that, they don't say, hey, I get it, Mom, but what they do is they model it by being calmer, and they don't have as many unregulated behaviors going on.
And remember, behavior is just another way of communicating, and our kids are just communicating what they are feeling. And we got to also understand our kids and who they are, meaning their temperament.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a very social-oriented kid, you can't have that kid just sit still. I mean, that kid needs to be doing things all the time or interacting in some way socially. And if you have a kid that's more passive or withdrawn, let that kid be all right reading a book. Don't try to get it to motivate it to just do something because you feel it needs to be done. It's more important that you understand where your kid's at that moment. That's that present moment thing. And that's how we ground in the present moment, by staying there and saying, I get this. I get why you're acting out, or I get, and let's see what we can do about it.
Yeah.
Let's see how we can make this better for you and for me. I always say we may be powerless in some ways, but we can control our own environment. And what I mean by that is a step-by-step approach. Just be in the moment and say, what can I control right now? Not 2 days from now, but what can I control right now? Because right now is really all we have. Because as you said, fear is false expectations appearing real. It's saying, oh, I'm going to do this or plan for that. Yeah, planning's okay. But if you're not present in the moment, you're not going to be able to even plan for the future, So you have to always be able to say, okay, what can I control right now? I'll do that, and then I'll take the next step and the next step.
Yeah. Yeah, the baby steps. We talk about that, taking the baby steps. The other thing I want to say is I find myself, when I'm talking about this with you, this COVID-19, or you or somebody else, I feel you get a little anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't forget to breathe.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, we're making light of that, but I'm not, because I found myself kind of holding my breath. And I said, when I use my breathing, that always helps me to move to that calmer place. So you mentioned temperament. That's important. And that's part of adoption attunement as well. Understanding the temperament of your child and yourself, because I have been inundated with all of these email messages like, hey, join us here, or do this, or feel better, or all of that. And hey, that's great. But I've not been able to really access that it's been 3 weeks for me here in California. My point is, I'm just starting to feel somewhat normalized, and it's been 3 weeks.
Right.
So now I can reach out.
And for me, Susan, I'm on the cusp of the introvert extrovert scale. So I can go either way,
Yeah.
But I'm fine being by myself. And yet every time when I want to reach out, I reach out to somebody. But, you have to know who you are, because some of that is never going to change. That's part of who you are and what you need. And as you said, if you're inundated, that's too much for you and you're taking in too much, you got to let that go and just say, all right, I got to step away from it.
Absolutely. Without the guilt, right?
Right.
How come you're not? I'm just not. So what I hear you saying is that we got to know our own limits. You have to be intentional, as always. You have to know what makes yourself grounded. And once you have that, once you're level, then you can turn around and assist your child. Like the mask, right? In the airplane. You can assist your child with the mask and put the mask on, and then you're good to go.
And be able to talk to your child about some of these things that are age appropriate, obviously. But don't just keep it and say, oh, I don't want to talk to them about it because it might distress them, because they're thinking about this already,
Yeah.
So the more you own it, the more comfortable they're going to be in discussing it with you.
So meet the essentials, keep them safe, and then work on the belonging.
That's right.
So I want
get that toilet paper.
Right. And paper towels. Remember that these are our observations as coaches and adoptive parents, and we know that each person and family are unique and their experiences may be different than ours.
But as our hope is that you'll consider adoption-attuned practices as a guide for parenting your adopted family, even as we are in the midst of these challenging times. Susan and I invite you to share your experience with us. We want you to go to the Growing Intentional Families Together Facebook page and our gift website to leave your comments.
Tell us what's going on in your family and let's talk about it, especially during this COVID-19 disaster. But we're going to make it through.
Yes. Please contact us at www.givefamilyservices.com to explore the possibilities when you are feeling that anxiety or stress.
That brings us to a close for today. I'm Susan from beautiful and mostly sunny San Diego, even while in my self-imposed lockdown.
And I'm Joann from Chicago. We have a beautiful day, and I took my walk in with my husband by ourselves and had a nice time. And now I'm back inside visiting with Susan. So please stay healthy, stay safe. Until next time, we bid you adieu.
Thank you for listening to Essentials for Adoption-attuned Parenting. If you like the program, please leave a rating and review on iTunes to help us spread the message about building strong and connected adoptive families. If you'd like more information about Gift Family Services and their adoption coaches, as well as to sign up for your free coaching consultation, visit giftfamilyservices.com. We have enjoyed being with you and invite you to join us again next time for another tip on Essentials for Adoption-attuned Parenting.